Kyron Horman was excited, dressed in his favorite CSI t-shirt, carrying a science project about red tree frogs. The 7-year-old beamed with pride. His stepmother took a photo of him standing in front of his display at Skyline Elementary. Hours later, he was gone, without a trace. Not a single student, teacher, or staff member reported seeing him after that photo. What happened to Kyron between that final smile and the silence that followed? When you look at Kyron Horman's school photo, you see a curious, sweet-faced little boy with a big smile and even bigger glasses. He's wearing a CSI t-shirt because he loved science and standing proudly beside a colorful trifold display about red-eyed tree frogs. It was for the school's science fair that day, and Kyron was excited to show it off. Kyron was only 7 years old. Born in September 2002, he lived in Portland, Oregon, and was just finishing the 2nd grade at Skyline Elementary School. By all accounts, he was kind, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of child who never wanted to disappoint his teachers, the kind of kid who asked questions about everything: how frogs breathe, how stars shine, why the sky changes colors. He split his time between 2 homes. His parents, Desiree and Caney, divorced when he was a baby, but they shared custody, and both were deeply involved in his life. At the time of his disappearance, Kyron lived mostly with his dad and his stepmother, Terry Horman, in a quiet rural part of northwest Portland. His room was filled with books, Lego sets, and little science kits. He wanted to be a detective or a biologist, maybe both. His teachers described him as smart but shy, more of a thinker than a talker. Nothing in his life hinted at danger. No threats, no chaos, no secrets. Which is what makes what happened next so chilling. Because on June 4, 2010, Kyron was supposed to go to school, show off his science project, and come home like any other Friday. But that afternoon, when the school bus pulled up in front of his house, Kyron wasn't on it. June 4, 2010. It was a Friday morning, and Skyline Elementary was buzzing with energy. Instead of the usual classes, students and parents were gathered for a special event, the school's science fair. Kyron was up early, thrilled to present his project. His stepmother, Terry Horman, drove him to school around 8 a.m. Together, they walked inside. Kyron set up his poster about tree frogs, and Terry took that now famous photo of him standing in front of it, grinning from ear to ear. That would become the last confirmed image of Kyron Horman. According to Terry, she stayed with Kyron until about 8:45 a.m., walking with him toward his classroom. She said he told her he was going to check out another exhibit in the gym before class. She watched him walk down the hallway, and then left the school. It was a completely normal moment. Nothing alarming, nothing suspicious. Just a parent saying, "Goodbye." But sometime after that, Kyron disappeared. When attendance was taken in his 2nd grade class that morning, Kyron was marked absent. Odd, but not alarming, at least not right away. Maybe he was still at the science fair. Maybe he went home sick. Terry said she assumed he was in class when she left, but no teachers or students reported seeing him that day. Not in the hallway, not in class, not even at the fair after 9 a.m. The day passed. At 3:30 p.m., Kyron's bus pulled up to his house, but he wasn't on it. The bus driver told Caney and Terry that Kyron had been marked absent all day. That's when panic set in. They called the school immediately. A staff member checked attendance logs and confirmed Kyron never made it to class. A quick search of the school turned up nothing. He wasn't in the nurse's office, not on the playground, not in the gym. He was just gone. At 3:46 p.m., the school secretary called 911 to report a missing child. By that evening, a massive search effort was already underway. Police, volunteers, search dogs, helicopters, all combing the surrounding woods and trails near the school. But as night fell over Portland, not a single trace of Kyron Horman had been found. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Within hours of Kyron's disappearance, the case turned into one of the largest search efforts in Oregon's history. Hundreds of volunteers poured into the area. Local and federal law enforcement including the FBI, set up a command center at the school. Search dogs were deployed. The woods behind the school were combed inch by inch, but nothing, no footprints, no torn backpack, no clothing, no signs of a struggle. Nothing to suggest Kyron had wandered off or that someone had taken him. In the beginning, it was treated like a possible stranger abduction. But there was a problem. Skyline Elementary is small, only about 300 students. It's tucked away on a quiet rural road, surrounded by dense forest. Visitors had to check in at the front office, and it was a science fair day, meaning there were parents, teachers, and kids everywhere. How could someone take a child from inside a school with no one noticing? As the hours passed, suspicion began to shift, not toward some faceless stranger, but inward, to the people closest to Kyron. And one name kept coming up: Terry Horman, Kyron's stepmother. She was the last known person to see him. And as investigators dug deeper, things didn't quite add up. Terry told police she left the school around 8:45 a.m., ran errands, then drove her infant daughter around to help her nap before heading to the gym. But investigators later discovered discrepancies in her timeline, gaps of time where her whereabouts couldn't be accounted for. They asked her to take a polygraph. She failed, twice. Then came the bombshell. A few weeks into the investigation, Kyron's father, Kyron Horman, was approached by law enforcement with a disturbing claim. They believed Terry had tried to hire a hitman months earlier to kill him. The alleged hitman was a former landscaper who worked at their home. He claimed Terry had offered him money to kill Kyron. The information came to light after Kyron vanished, but it was enough to shake everything. Kyron immediately took his daughter and left the house. He filed a restraining order against Terry and filed for divorce. In court documents, he claimed that law enforcement believed Terry was involved in the disappearance of Kyron. But here's the thing: Terry was never arrested. No charges were filed. The murder-for-hire plot was never proven in court. And there was no physical evidence linking her to Kyron's disappearance. So what exactly happened? Over time, several theories emerged, each one chilling, each one plausible. None proven. Theory 1. Terry Horman was involved. Investigators and Kyron's mother both pointed fingers at Terry. The timeline didn't quite match up. She was the last known person with Kyron. She allegedly tried to hire someone to kill Kyron, but no evidence ever surfaced. No witnesses, no confession, no forensic trail. Theory 2. Stranger abduction. Some believe someone unrelated to the family slipped in during the science fair. Maybe Kyron wandered off and was lured away by someone in a car. But how would a stranger get in and out of the school, unnoticed, in broad daylight? No security cameras caught anything unusual. Theory 3. Kyron wandered off and got lost. He was curious and adventurous. Could he have left school grounds and gotten lost in the nearby woods? But extensive searches turned up nothing, not even a shoe, not a scrap of clothing. And school staff said they never saw him leave. Theory 4. A conspiracy or cover-up. Some online theorists believe more than one person was involved. Maybe someone helped move Kyron after the fact. Others suggest the science fair created confusion, allowing for an opportunistic crime. But again, no evidence. Despite years of digging, surveillance reviews, interviews, and even sting operations against Terry, there was no arrest, no resolution, and no Kyron. 18 years old. That's how old Kyron would be today. He's frozen, in time in that school hallway, wearing his CSI shirt, proud of his project, his little smile, still waiting for answers. In the days after Kyron disappeared, the Portland community came together in a way few had ever seen. Parents clutched their children tighter. Strangers turned into volunteers. Entire neighborhoods were blanketed with flyers showing Kyron's gap-toothed smile and wire-rimmed glasses. Everyone wanted to believe he was still out there, somewhere. At one point, over 2,300 searchers were involved. Dive teams scoured nearby creeks. Helicopters flew over forests and fields. Dogs tracked for miles. The FBI called it one of the most intense searches they'd ever participated in for a single missing child. But after weeks, then months, the trail grew cold. Kyron's mother, Desiree Young, became the most visible voice in the fight to find him. She held press conferences. She pleaded for information. She passed out flyers, coordinated with law enforcement, and never once gave up hope. She was clear in her belief. She thinks Terry Horman knows what happened to her son. Desiree even filed a civil lawsuit against Terry, accusing her of intentional infliction of emotional distress and wrongful custody interference. In court documents, she described the pain of waiting, of not knowing, of living every single day with the crushing fear that her son might never come home. But despite the accusations, Terry denied any involvement. Terry eventually moved out of Oregon. She changed her name multiple times. She was arrested in 2016 in California, not for Kyron's case, but for allegedly stealing a gun and domestic-related issues. None of it led back to Kyron, but it kept her name in the headlines. Over the years, new tips would occasionally surface. A backpack spotted in the woods, a shallow grave reported by a hiker, but none of it panned out. Every time hope sparked, it was extinguished. Each June 4th, the date is marked by candlelight vigils and memorial walks. Friends, family, even strangers gather to remember a little boy who was last seen in a school hallway and never seen again. Kyron Horman, Kyron's father, stays mostly out of the spotlight now, but he's spoken about the pain of raising another child while still grieving the one he lost. He said he believes someone out there knows something, and that the case can still be solved. And Desiree, she refuses to call Kyron dead. It's now been more than 15 years since Kyron Horman disappeared from Skyline Elementary School. 15 years without answers. 15 years without justice. 15 years without a trace. Despite thousands of leads, multiple investigations, and a family shattered by suspicion and silence, Kyron has never been found. Today, Kyron would be 22 years old. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has released multiple age-progressed images showing what he might look like now, older, taller, but with those same bright eyes and familiar face. And the case? Still open, still active, still waiting for the one piece of truth that could change everything. There is a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest or discovery in Kyron's case. Authorities continue to receive tips, even now. And every so often, investigators revisit old files, re-interview witnesses, hoping someone will remember something they forgot, or finally say something they've been hiding. The heartbreak of this case isn't just in what we know. It's in what we don't. How does a child vanish from inside a school in broad daylight, in a room full of parents and teachers, and leave behind no evidence? How do you explain a 7-year-old's disappearance with no witnesses, no footage, no clue? And how do you live as a parent, day after day, year after year, not knowing if your child is alive, or if you've already missed your last goodbye? I know someone out there knows something. I know someone saw something, and I will never stop looking for my son. Kyron's story is not just about a missing boy. It's about a family torn apart, a community haunted by unanswered questions, and a case that reminds us all, sometimes the most terrifying mysteries don't happen in the dark. They happen in broad daylight, when you least expect them. She still leaves his room as it was. She still sets a place for him, still holds on to the idea that maybe, somehow he's alive. Maybe he was taken, raised by someone else, unaware of who he really is. And maybe, someday, he'll find his way home. Kyron's story is a parent's worst nightmare. A bright little boy full of wonder, gone in broad daylight. No matter how much time passes, one question haunts us all. How does a child vanish from a school without anyone seeing a thing? Someone, somewhere, knows the truth. And until that truth is found, Kyron's smile remains frozen in time, waiting for justice.